Hi everyone and welcome to a very special pick a card reading brought to you by 1millionnights.com. Today we have a very special subject because we have this new moon in the sign of Libra taking place in the sky today, and if you have been following our horoscopes, it is not the most pleasant energy because this new moon speaks in squares, specifically a T-square with the Capricorn planet, and it opposes Mars as well. So it is an energy of tension, stress, maybe disappointment, unfulfilled hopes, and at the same time, the landscape of all our relationship, regardless if they're romantic or any otherwise, is being reconfigured in the present moment. And even though that doesn't have to mean anything negative, anything bad, actually it's for the greater good on long term. But for those of us who are single and looking, this can add an extra touch of melancholy and feeling pretty lonely, given the fact that the sign of Libra is ruled by the planet Venus, goddess of love and beauty, and it's responsible for relationships and also romance. So when there are planets in this part of the sky, and those planets speak in conflict with one another, with tension, that can represent, an increased sense of loneliness and hopelessness for those who are single. But also, like every single new moon, this is a wonderful and perfect day to plant seeds of intentions into the universe. And since, as I said, it's taking place in the sign of Libra, it is actually perfect to focus on love, on relationship, on love stories that we would really, really like to experience in the future, especially the next 6 months of our lives, because that is the time needed for a new moon to fully manifest. So this pick a card reading, on one hand, tries to take a look at what your potential regarding romance and love, especially fated love, is, but on the other hand, it is meant to inspire you and motivate you to dream, to fantasize, to allow your divine spark to co-create with this new moon a love story that can enter your life in the next 6 months. So with all pick a card readings, just focus on the 3 piles of cards for a number of seconds, or as long as you need to, then choose the one which appeals to your intuitive senses the most, and then naturally just jump to the interpretation of the pile chosen by you. Thank you so much for playing, and in the following I'm going to deliver the message of the 3 piles of cards. Timestamps can be found in the comments below. For those of you who have chosen the first pile, your cards are the Temperance, 10 of Cups reversed, and 2 of Cups. Well, first of all, the 2 of Cups is exactly the card of romance, the card of deeply, madly falling in love with someone, meeting someone who is very, very fulfilling emotionally and romantically. So this is a really, really good sign. It can represent that this energy might be getting really, really close, but it can also represent that you guys are basically co-creating this for some time now, but it hasn't entered your life just yet. Of course, the other cards are telling us the story of how and why it hasn't entered in your life, but also how this relationship can play out in the future. First of all, the 10 of Cups reversed is the most relevant card here because it speaks about either the past or the distant past, where the 10 of Cups in upright position would represent a stable, long-term, committed and faithful relationship, which makes both parties or both sides of the relationship very happy, and it can even mean a family or the potential to establish a family. But in reverse position, it can speak about that maybe once in your life you had this potential, you had this relationship, maybe a long-term committed relationship, but it has ended, and it did leave scars on your soul and also on your self-esteem a little bit. And the temperance is basically telling us that ever since that relationship ended, it could have been a divorce, or it could have been just a simple termination. It could have also been betrayal, or, sometimes it isn't anyone's fault. It is just destiny. It is just life splitting you guys apart. And there is no choice but to give in, to surrender, and everyone to go on their separate ways. Regardless of how this happened, the Temperance card represents a very, very long healing process. And also, the Ten of Cups reversed might represent that it wasn't really a negative, toxic relationship. It wasn't like a power struggle. It wasn't, full of abuse and, the usual modern day termination of a long-term relationship. But rather, it was a misjudgment because maybe you guys weren't truly compatible. You just lived in the illusion that you were compatible, or you were separated emotionally, but because of some, for example, material reasons or because of guilt, you just couldn't separate, and then, everything soured. And that was the reason of the trauma or the scars that it left on both of your souls. But ultimately, of course, fate and destiny and why life and things in your romantic area of your lives played out this way had a very strong divine logic which you had to understand. And that logic is none other that you are the type of person who simply cannot surrender their independence, not even your emotional independence, because you're that much self-sufficient. And this very powerful inner configuration of self-sufficiency, which sometimes means that you need your solitude. You need to operate alone. You cannot have anyone interfering with your mind, with your emotions, with your decisions, with your life, with your non-romantic relationships in your life. So, sometimes you guys have to be solo, where your partner must not get involved or has to just allow you to do things in your life your way. But because society and the way the world has always regarded relationship, romance, long-term commitment, a very strong expression of independence within a relationship was never seen with good eyes, not even by you guys. And that is exactly why you needed this very, very powerful karmic lesson to finally understand and process for good, forever, that it's perfectly okay to love someone, to be with someone, to have a partner, but at the same time to be independent and not basically have a very, very strong attachment in anything. And these attachment lessons weren't just for your partner, but they were actually for you as well, equally, because you might have also had attachment issues. So basically everything worked like a mirror. Whatever your partner did, you did as well. Whatever you did, ultimately, your ex-partner did as well. And all of these had to be healed, and this lesson had to be understood and embodied in such a way where you can no longer feel guilt for who you are, for how you are, for what personality archetype you embody. And to be totally honest with you, I'm not 100% sure if this big karmic lesson and ultimately deep understanding of your own psychology, of how your inner world functions, is finished 100%. It's not like you need more lessons. It's like you need to practice a little bit more to take pride in your independence and basically never ever to think that the way you look at life, the way you perceive love, the kind of relationship you would desire to have in your life is wrong or not really normal or unfair to certain people. because that's what society and the modern take on relationships and commitment would have you believe about all of this. And naturally, don't get me wrong, this isn't the other extreme, the other side of the spectrum. So you do seek like stable commitment. You don't want a hyper modern kind of open relationship or third party kind of relationship or polygamous relationship or that kind of stuff. You just want both you and your future partner to have a life of your own, and many times in life, in destiny, as you go with the flow, you have to do things and live things and experience things personally on your own without the partner getting deeply involved. The most they can do is just be supportive and tolerant, and that can be and should be, and you want it to be, perfectly mutual and equal. And this is exactly the kind of relationship that is being prepared for you from a karmic and fated perspective, because the person who you are going to meet, that Two of Cups card naturally, is going to be exactly your kind of archetype, and they might have suffered the very same kind of past, the same obstacles, the same problems. They might be working on releasing guilt, shame, and certain external standards of how a relationship should be. Basically, both you and your future partner right now are being prepared not just to meet one another, but first of all, to know that you're perfect and you're healthy the way you are, and your outlook on and perceptions about life and love are not flawed, are not ill, are not self-defeating. And when this healing process, when this inner equilibrium and self-trust, most of all, becomes crystallized in your soul, in your mind, in your emotional world, well, that will be the moment when you guys will actually meet each other. And this can be a situation where, first of all, it will be a distance or long distance relationship. You might be from different cultures, or you might live in two different parts of the world, or even if you live in the same country, you might live at long distance to each other. But this won't really be a challenge, especially at the first phases when you come together, when your relationship is formed. It is actually going to be a blessing, because you're going to be both free and independent and have like really deep nurturing love in your life. Even if you cannot meet 24/7 and be together all the time, it will be like a breath of fresh air, and also a bright, inspirational, shining star in your life, which watches over you from a distance. So chances are this won't be an obstacle whatsoever, but quite the contrary. It is going to be a major blessing. And after some time passes, maybe 2 years, 3 years, you guys can actually make the decision to move in together with each other, but in such a way where none of you have to make any very strong compromises, like to forcefully leave behind a job or friends or community or something. Both of you are basically going to trust this fated relationship, and naturally fate will enable you to move in together and form a much stronger bond. And once that takes place, well, your relationship is definitely going to be built on very strong, basically uncorruptible foundations, and it will last for a really long time, if not for the rest of your lives. And another blessing here is that both you and your future partner are gonna be, or are actually, people who are really not really interested in anyone else. You are not people who fall into temptation. Basically, temptation and, how modern society works romantically and maybe sexually speaking, it really just leaves you cold. You have no interest whatsoever. And this is gonna be an even bigger blessing, because there won't even be an issue of trust here. You will basically know that your future partner will not really care at all about anyone else, and they will know that you don't really care, so that is gonna be something really, really perfect beyond your wildest expectations. Even though, I'm not gonna lie, there are gonna be moments when not being able to see one another is gonna be uncomfortable, but because you know that it is fated, and you know that you are not gonna find anyone like your future partner out there in the world ever again, that part is gonna make everything so very easy on a soul level. For those of you who were attracted to the second pile, your cards are the Four of Wands, the Awakening. In classic tarot, this card is called the Judgment, and the Eight of Coins reversed. Now, this depicts a rather complicated situation, because that Judgment, the Awakening card, represents that for you guys, ironically, forming relationship, inspiring people is actually or should be your strong point, because internally you are such a lovable person. You are simply full of inspiration, you're full of care, you're full of compassion, but at the same time you're so very fun, unpredictable. You are full of life, and you actually have a really, really strong personal magnetism about you. But all of this, all of your traits which would make you, the lover archetype, exactly a type of person who is the most perfect lover, partner, companion. You are someone, basically, who everyone around you would desire to have in their lives, romantically, or as friends, or as partners, or simply as a presence, because you have so much inner power, inner light. And how should I even explain myself? That spirit of, well, let's live life to the fullest kind of energy. And even though this personal magnetism of yours works like a charm, but most of the time, or maybe all of the time, it kind of misfires, in the sense that maybe you attract all the wrong kind of people into your life, where yes, they might see you with very admirable eyes, or they cannot get enough of you, or they might get obsessed with you, but it never ever advantages you personally. Or even when something, maybe like a relationship or a connection or a potential romantic partnership, starts to play out in a positive way, where you might think, oh yes, this is it now, I'm gonna make sure that things will work fine. Well, it always ends up in a weird kind of separation, or sometimes it is you who basically reject the other person, even though it was you who initiated all of this. So, in other words, it can be the case that all your life, romance or partnerships or anything that has to do with one-on-one alliances, usually was a massive chaos. Many times it just didn't make any sense whatsoever. And you got to the point where you don't even know what to think anymore. Is fate playing with you? Is there something wrong with you? Is there something wrong with society and other people? Are you hexed, or do you have some kind of spell on you which basically turns this area of your life into something like the Twilight Zone? Because on one hand, your magnetism is working, but not the way it should, because it never ever advantages you, or sometimes it can turn into a big drama, but where it's not you who are the drama queen or king, but it is almost like fated. And the cards tell us, through that Eight of Earth, Eight of Coins in classic tarot, that there is a very strong and powerful unconscious pattern running in your mind, because it stems from your childhood or from your family of origin. Now, it can be the case that maybe your parents, when you were younger, went through a divorce, or their relationship was a little bit unnatural. Maybe emotionally everything was cold and they were together just for practical reasons, just to raise you up or to give you the most comfortable life possible. Or it could be the case that there was abuse and violence in the family. Or it could be the case that somehow as a child you might have felt responsible and guilty for the troubles or hardships of your parents and your family. You might have felt left out or very, very lonely, even though everyone was there. Or it could be the case that from an emotional perspective, or sometimes even a material perspective, a parental figure was missing from your life. Maybe a father abandoned its family, or maybe they had a job or kind of work where they were always away. Maybe it was a case of betrayal, or it can simply mean that you are someone who seeks a same-sex relationship, and in that case, it might not necessarily that much be the past and the childhood, even though that contributes. It might be actually the present, that, people, potential partners, who belong to the same sexual minority, they are very, very unlike you. They're not so serious, they're not so deep, they're not romantic, or they're not looking for a true long-term committed relationship based on honest love and care and compassion. In which case, because you are looking for this, you are very romantic and you really want to make someone happy, well, in this case, you are the alien, you are the outsider, even though you might belong to a minority yourself, a minority within the minority, and in that case, well, situationally, you finding a compatible partner is very, very difficult. Now, the cards say that this psychological unconscious pattern was already revealed to you, maybe in a very profound way in 2019 or at the beginning of 2020, when you could actually identify that this is what is running in your mind. And you have done some very, very significant healing work, or basically you try to apply self-mastery, that because that is what you saw as when you were a child, that is how your younger days played out, or if it's a same-sex type of relationship, just because you seek something very idealistic, that doesn't mean that it's impossible. So you are not like others, you are not your family, and you're 100% not gonna enact the same patterns as your family or other people, and this contributed really, really much to your healing, and that inner psychological pattern is almost over and done with and replaced with a very, very healthy one. That Four of Wands represents that you have taken control of your life, of your inner world, and ultimately your destiny and karma, and you are the one in charge right now. So this is where the person who you have metamorphosed into says that it's absolutely perfectly okay for things to be your way or the highway, romantically, emotionally, regarding partnerships. Now, as I said earlier, you have a very powerful magnetism about you, so you draw different kind of people like a magnet, especially wounded people. But this is where you shut the door, you break all ties even before someone inappropriate can even come near you, even before they can actually enter your life, mind, or heart. And this is the best possible attitude, because when a door shuts, a new one opens. And yes, you do have to shut hundreds of doors, but that one single door which actually leads to the accomplishment of your desire, because ultimately the Four of Wands is the card of accomplishment. It is the card of completion. Now that is what is awaiting you. It's not easy, it takes some time, it takes a lot of patience and self-mastery, and to believe that it is possible, to believe that you can actually find someone really, really nice who you can be with, who shares your values, your perspective, and it's something mutually fulfilling from an emotional perspective. Now that is actually real, and your patience and your courage to shut everyone inappropriate out and not to initiate any kind of new relationship when you simply just know that it's gonna end in a bad way. All of this is gonna be compensated, rewarded karmically, where you will actually attract a person who is just like you and shares your value systems. From the Awakening is a very karmic card. It speaks of quantum reality. What you seek ultimately also seeks you, and when the quantum entanglement takes place, which is almost certain, it's just a question of time, of the right moment. That is the moment when you can actually open that special door and allow that very special person inside your heart, life, and mind. For those of you who have chosen the third pile, your cards are the Lovers. What a wonderful coincidence, so to speak. The Seven of Wands and the Nine of Cups. Now this is where things get really, really complicated, because on one hand, the Lovers suggests that you actually came into this world in this incarnation with a destined love. And it's not just a simple love story. It is a very strong karmic relationship, soulmate type of connection, or twin flame if that thing actually is real. But you might have experienced the total opposite, where you were always, alone in every single sense. You had a very, very tough life from so very many different perspectives, and not really romantically, because, sometimes romance, partnerships, love wasn't even part of the equation. The Seven of Wands suggests that you had to survive. That means challenges coming from all directions. That means inner challenges, outer challenges. You had to survive. You had to fight for your place. Sometimes you had to fight for your sanity. But at the same time, it is the card of ultimate power. Yes, you had all these fated challenges, hardships, obstacles to overcome in your life. So very much disadvantaged in certain areas of life, and basically just had to climb up from the base of the mountain to the top. And once you reach the top, you couldn't even enjoy the moment of glory and victory, because another challenge from a totally different direction came. So it really, really wasn't easy for you guys. And also the Seven of Wands suggests that sometimes you had to fight the battles of another person you love deeply, like a family member, a very, very good friend. You were someone who always stood up for other people and helped them and, gave them strength in their own struggles. So basically you were always busy, you were always, doing something, overcoming something really, really big. And very many times in your life, it was really you against the world, and that took a massive toll on you. Yes, on one hand, you're stronger than anyone you know in your life, and you might not agree with me, as you listen to this, but if you think about it truly and deeply, do you know anyone in your life who psychologically resisted so much chaos and turmoil without going insane, or without being broken inside for life? And that is true strength. Now that is almost ultimate psychological power. And it could be the case that right now in this present moment, your life might not be that much different. You still have either a challenge to overcome, a big obstacle, or a massive goal to accomplish before you can even think of love. But this is where you are truly starting to desire love, because you're really fed up of fighting alone. You're really fed up of, fending for yourself, defending yourself, standing up for what you believe in, having to protect yourself and your loved ones. It is very, very tiring. And even though you're full of power, well, what sense does it make if this is all that you ever do in life? It's like a karmic broken record. There has to come something else where it can give you a chance to just relax. Now, on one hand, you actually learn the lesson that sometimes you have to put the weapon, so to speak, down. You have to put the sword down, or the wand in this case, and just not fight, not get involved. Say that this is not my fight. I just want a little bit of moment of peace. I just want to be with myself, and I want to focus on different things than just overcoming challenges. And if there are duties to support another person, well, sometimes in life everyone is on their own. Because babysitting others who are maybe somewhat capable of doing this as well, it's self-defeating and it leads to martyrdom. And you learn this lesson so very painfully. So yeah, you're actually kind of getting ready to relax and just stop the fight, stop the struggle, slow down, and go with the flow. If the obstacles want to defeat you, if the universe doesn't want to support you by overcoming this, that, and the other challenge, well, sometimes in life, it's absolutely fine, because you're someone who can actually take defeat. And because of this attitude of yours, the Nine of Cups is entering your life, and the energy of the Nine of Cups is personal happiness. I am not sure what exactly is gonna happen, but the karmic forces are gonna take off the crosses of your shoulder, your own personal cross and the cross of others, and they're gonna give you a life of ease, even a life of greater ease, a life of freedom where you can just relax, not focus on absolutely anything or anyone apart from yourself, and all your needs and desires that you had to sacrifice all throughout your lifetime. So for you personally, a time is coming when you have to live life to the fullest. And love is naturally part of this karmic pattern that is entering your life, but this is where things get a little bit tricky. Once your life turns around, and once you actually taste happiness and what it feels like to be okay, perfectly safe, be full of self-love and happiness in your own life, you might appreciate love, don't get me wrong. It's not like you're gonna shut the door to anyone, but even if that fated love enters your life and knocks at your door, you might not want to commit, because maybe you have so much self-happiness, if that word actually makes sense, inside of you by now, because we are talking about the future, approximately in the next 9 months or something like that. Well, your life is going to be so full of everything that makes you happy that you might say, okay, I accept your love, but I do not accept your commitment. And if your fated lover wants commitment by all means necessary, well, this karmic relationship might be put on hold, even though it just began. But it's not like you're gonna miss out or, lose this love, because chances are the Lovers card, your partner, your soulmate, will know exactly that you guys are soulmates, and they're gonna insist and insist and insist, even if it takes years, even if it takes tens of years, until you are finally ready to settle down and commit. So basically, what is set in stone is that it's coming, but the decision that you're gonna make and when you're gonna make that decision, now that all depends on you. There is no right or wrong choice. There is just how you feel in that moment in time. And the good part is that this person is going to be so very highly romantic that they'll do every trick in the book to, court you, convince you, express their love, express their happiness that they actually met you, that fate brought you together. And because they'll be a very emotionally mature person, whenever you say, well, not now, I'm not ready yet, this isn't good for me yet, they're not gonna make any big fuss or drama about it. They're just gonna go with the flow and be happy that you even speak to them, that you're willing to accept their friendship, etc. So it's gonna be actually quite a beautiful phase, just that fate kept you waiting for such a long time, and the universe itself gave you such a hard life that right now it's your turn to be capricious. And with each rejection, of course, it will make your partner, future partners, destined partners, desire that much stronger. So it's actually gonna be fun. It's not gonna be drama. It's not gonna be doom and gloom. It's gonna be actually something that you pre-planned when you still were a spirit before you entered into this life. It's part of the cat and mouse game. So basically, I think for you guys, those who chosen the third pile, the fact that your life is gonna change and it's gonna be much easier, and the hardships and the struggles, the cross falls off, that is the best of news, not really the love part. But anyway, whatever fate brings your way, enjoy it and be happy because you've worked for it and you deserve it. Well, thank you so much for listening. I wish everyone a blessed and magical new moon in the sign of Libra. And remember, if you'd like a personal reading, just log on to 1millionnights.com and choose one of your dedicated advisors. And we also have a special promotion where if you buy any of our prepaid packages, you get 10% bonus credit. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, bye for now.